He gotta live for the mouth, ain't he?
Welcome, listeners, once again to the Bangers and Mash Show. Though what we're doing today is a little different. Usually I'm sitting on a couch with my co-host, JD. Instead, I'm actually recording with a completely different human being this time. May you introduce yourself.
I am a human being, and my name is Marcus Jones.
I was on one of Marcus's podcasts, and now he's on mine.
I'm excited to be on. I'm a fan of this podcast, and yes, you were a guest on my podcast, Jean-Pod Van Damme. What did we talk? We talked Bloodsport, didn't we?
Yes, and I recommend everybody listening to this check out Jean-Pod Van Damme and also Marcus's other show, Celluloid.
Yeah, that's what I do.
I should go ahead and introduce today's topic, which is horror film set in the American South. There is an interesting cultural divide in this country. People from the city think everybody who lives in the South is a meth head, redneck, rapist.
I'm actually originally from Mobile, Alabama, about as south as you can get. Even though I'm from the third largest city in Alabama, whenever I went up north anywhere, usually would always get, oh, you guys have paved roads and telephones and shit like that?
Indoor plumbing?
No, we have all of that.
I'm from West Virginia, which is about as far north as you can go and still be considered the South. I've gotten that sometimes too. Once I was visiting Atlantic City, and the cab driver asked me where I was from, and I told him I was from West Virginia. And he said, oh, you from the parts of West Virginia where the family tree doesn't fork?
Oh, I've even gotten that not going away from the South. I've gotten that kind of talk when I've gone to North Carolina before, and I was like, you guys are in the same boat as me.
Then again, I looked at some of my neighbors, and
it's not all wrong either.
Yeah, exactly. The deprived redneck, usually inbred, usually cannibalistic, is very much a proud tradition in the horror genre.
It's an easy thing to fear. Most of the people that are going to see these movies are in cities and stuff, so it's kind of the fear of the other. If you live in a town with a population of 50, you gotta start fucking someone in the family sooner or later.
At the same time, these films are often popular with people from the South.
Maybe it's just such a lack of representation that maybe any representation is something. Maybe it's also these killers and psychotics and stuff usually kill people from the cities. They're rooting for the bad guys, maybe.
The first movie we're going to be talking about tonight may be the early example of this trope in cinema anyway. I'm sure there are literary forebearers.
I did not get to go through all of the films on your list, but I did try my best.
You're all invited to a centennial celebration. What they were celebrating wasn't important, and it sounded like a heap of fun until 2,000 maniacs, crazed for carnage, started bathing an entire town in pulsing human blood. You'll see 6 young strangers doomed to slaughter by an ancient curse. Brutal, evil, ghastly beyond belief. You'll see the most diabolical device ever contrived, designed solely for assassination by a town of madmen, insane with bloodlust.
As far as I can tell, the earliest killer redneck movie is 1964's 2000 Maniacs by the late Herschel Gordon Lewis.
That is actually one I did not watch.
Well, are you familiar with the oeuvre of Mr. Herschel Gordon Lewis?
Yes, I actually am. What is the sequel to this film called?
Well, there's a remake.
The remake is what I saw, the one with Robert Englund.
And this one follows the same general outline. A bunch of people are on a road trip, and they take a mysterious detour and wind up in Pleasant Valley. They never say where it's set in the original, though the remake is set in Georgia. Eventually, the main characters discover the people in this town are ghosts or something. In the Civil War, the Northern Army marched through the town and burned it to the ground and killed everybody. Every 100 years, the town reappears and they take their revenge on any Northerners that wander through. We wonder if maybe the Southern audiences who watch these films are rooting for the killers, and I think that is very much the case. In 2000 Maniacs, people in the town are villainous, but at the same time, they're more interesting and more likable than the other characters.
Which is a trope that runs through this. I know we're probably not going to talk much about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies because you already did an episode on those, but yeah, you usually usually the people that get killed are very annoying or unlikable. Actual killers are way more interesting, even if they are sadistic and messed up.
Because this is a Herschel Gordon Lewis movie, most of the acting is terrible in 2000 Maniacs, except for Jeffrey Allen, who plays the Mayor Buckman character, who Robert Englund plays in the remake. He gives the best performance in the film. He's very jovial. Which one of his films have you seen, by the way?
I think I've seen like one or two of his films.
Have you seen Blood Feast?
Yes, I have seen Blood Feast.
He didn't really have a lot of interest in traditional cinematic aesthetics. 2000 Maniacs has about 6 different endings to stretch the movie to feature length. A lot of his early gore films, the special effects are obviously unsophisticated. A woman gets her arm chopped off, and it's immediately evident that it's a mannequin arm with some fake blood on it.
But especially for the time period, that is effective.
These movies were some of the first American gore films, and they were considered very shocking at the time. For modern eyes, you watch them and you laugh at it. Again, it's part of the charm of Herschel Gordon Lewis's movies. They have this homemade element.
Extremely low budget on all of them, I'm assuming.
Very low budget. If you liked Blood Feast, you will probably like 2000 Maniacs, because it's a little more polished than that one.
On their way to spring break, they took an unexpected detour into an old southern town that never forgot Southern hospitality.
Let's all get this party started!
Good old home cooking.
You don't want to miss the barbecue!
And the Civil War.
Ain't gonna be no escaping what y'all got coming to you now.
They barbecued and ate our friends.
I'm still hungry!
Do you want to go ahead and talk about the remake?
No, not really. It's not really worth talking about. Robert Englund is interesting in it. He makes for a decent lead and probably one of the only reasons to watch.
But I actually thought 2001 Maniacs was okay. Much cruder in its content.
Yeah.
Basically a sex comedy in a lot of ways. One of Mayor Buckman's son is fucking a sheep throughout the whole movie.
Yeah, it's very much like a Cinemax kind of movie.
That movie also had Lynn Shay in it, who I liked. It's always nice when she shows up and stuff.
I love Lynn Shay, and I always enjoy when she shows up in anything.
If you didn't like the remake, the sequel to that film is actually much, much worse. I think it was called the Beverly Hillbillies or something. Bill Moseley steps in for Robert Englund. It's making fun of Paris Hilton for 90 minutes, and when it came out, that was already old hat.
You would think Bill Moseley added to a movie would be a good thing, but that's actually not always the case.
Him and Englund, they're in a lot of bad movies, so they usually are the best thing about those bad movies.
Yeah, a lot of times the only reason to watch those movies. They're an easy-to-get name, I guess.
They were just like any other married couple, except they were escaping to the quiet life of England. It never occurred to him that their peaceful existence could be shattered so swiftly. It never occurred to her that a single unfaithful act would erupt into a nightmare of violence. But this was only the beginning. Director Sam Peckinpah unleashes his cameras on one of the most vengeful and gripping stories of our time. In one terrifying night, this violence would shatter their lives forever. Straw Dogs is about 2 people pushed beyond the limits of terror.
The next thing I've got on my list here is 1971 Straw Dogs. I guess it's not really a horror film per se.
It is more psychological horror, but it's also not necessarily American South film because it takes place in the UK, doesn't it?
That is true.
They still share the hillbilly element.
I know they remade it a few years back and set it in the American South, and I didn't see the remake.
I never saw that. One that you didn't have on your list that I was going to bring up, which also isn't quite the American South, Backwoods, Connecticut, is I Spit on Your Grave, which is still very much in line with that, but that's another movie that they did a remake of a few years ago that just seems unnecessary. It just kind of seems dirtier for some reason.
Strip away the legitimate grit, and then they add factory-made grit. They did the same thing with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake, which I hate.
And they also seem to inject a sexuality to it that wasn't supposed to be there. No, we got to get some TNA in there to sell this to the kids.
So what do you think of Peckinpah's Straw Dogs?
I really like it. You're right, Straw Dogs isn't necessarily a horror movie, but it is a horrifying movie, and it still does have backwoods people. Dustin Hoffman is a brainy guy that goes with his wife that's from this very small village. He married one of our own, one of our people that we're supposed to have, and that's where that tension comes from. It's a really good movie, and it's extremely tense, and especially the last half hour, 20 minutes or so, brutal.
Might be Sam Peckinpah's most inflammatory movie, which is really saying something.
Might say his best. Not so much in rewatchability, but in effectiveness.
Very intense movie, and it's a film people still, there are things about it that still upset people. The notorious rape scene, I don't know.
Maybe rape, maybe not kind of thing, but turns into rape right afterwards.
A lot of people have accused Peckinpah's films of having a, let's be kind and say, difficult relationship with women.
Yeah, no, that's being extremely kind. I guess you could read it as, she kind of moaned a little bit, so she obviously wanted it, but it's still really violent.
It's an incredibly uncomfortable scene. There are earlier moments where she's flirting with these good old boys. When it happens, she seems like she could potentially be into it, but then she isn't.
Her ex-boyfriend, so she has some history with him.
Right.
Her and Dustin Hoffman's character are having problems in their marriage, maybe lashing out a little bit. And again, maybe she has a little bit of feelings for her ex-boyfriend. Understandably, that happens. But it's still very uncomfortable and very uncalled for.
It's a difficult scene to read.
It works as a catalyst for the intensity of the later scenes, especially the violent scenes at the end. They are very shocking, but when you consider what they come after, they really aren't.
One of the reasons you could sort of make the claim that Straw Dogs is a horror film is because it's as violent as any of the horror movies from that period. The bear trap sequence is the scene that everybody remembers.
It makes it skin-crawling at times as well. The sound design, when he's in the house and he's trying to cover up his footsteps, so he turns the music up really loud, and that is unnerving.
We didn't mention it, but this becomes a siege movie in the last act. The film does feature a lot of that thick gothic fog, which is catnip for me. And before we move on, what do you think the title means?
It's a quote from something.
I think Peckinpah said in an interview once the title Straw Dogs was taken from a Chinese proverb. Straw dog was a sacrificial thing they would burn.
Yes, it's something that they burn, but it ultimately has no meaning.
And I've always interpreted the title as meaning Dustin Hoffman is this thing that the people think they can push around and knock over very easily, like he's made of straw. The dog part, I don't get so much.
Oh, okay, that's what it is. The title derives from a discussion in the Tao Te Ching that likens the ancient Chinese ceremonial straw dog to forms without substance.
Yeah, and I'm not really sure how that relates to the movie so much.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Where are you going, city boy?
These are the men. Nothing very unusual about them. Suburban guys like you or your neighbor. Nothing very unusual about them until they decided to spend one weekend canoeing down the Cohulawasi River. These are the men who decided not to play golf that weekend. Instead, they sought the river.
You look around, you Lewis. He could be out there anywhere, watching us right now. We ain't gonna be so hard to follow, dragging a corpse.
John Boorman's film of James Dickey's explosive, best-selling novel.
The next thing I've got on my list is also debatably horror, though I think the Savage Style / redneck horror genre would not exist without 1972's Deliverance.
A year after Straw Dogs, so it does seem to be a thing in the early 70s, I guess, pushing the boundaries of what you could do on film.
Oh, definitely. And the two films have some thematic elements in common because they both grapple with what masculinity means in the modern day. In Straw Dogs, you have Dustin Hoffman as this nerdy milquetoast character contrasting against these rough and tumble Southern people. And then in Deliverance, John Hoyt's character is this avuncular fellow. Their friend is Burt Reynolds, who is Burt Reynolds.
He is the epitome of masculinity.
Yeah, he's a rugged outdoorsman. The movie flips that on its head. He gets injured midway through and is completely useless throughout the rest of the film.
It's saying something interesting, too, is no matter how masculine you are, you're still human, you're still frail.
Deliverance, obviously directed by John Boorman, who is occasionally a great filmmaker.
Very occasionally, but he also did Zardoz, didn't he?
Zardoz and The Exorcist 2.
Yeah.
It really focuses a lot on the gorgeous Georgia countryside. If you could allow me to step into Werner Herzog's headspace a little bit.
Oh,
also,
as long as you do the accent.
Oh, God, okay. It's about the perversity of nature.
That's actually not bad.
I don't find anything particularly beautiful about it. You know, the idea is...
Nature always wins.
It doesn't matter how prepared or tough you think you are. The part of the substance of Deliverance, which I think is a great film.
A perfectly cast movie. That's such a good, tight cast that they have in this film.
This movie ended up launching the careers of just about everybody, and John Hoyt had already done Midnight Cowboy, so he was known.
Well, he was the name in this, I guess.
Yeah, he was. Burt Reynolds would immediately become one of the biggest stars of the 70s.
Yeah, a sex symbol.
Yeah, well, it was a different time, you know.
Ned Beatty would go on to get fucked in the ass for decades.
And Ronnie Cox, I know for getting shot out a window in RoboCop.
That's probably what he will always be known for.
It's a wonderful cast. Everybody is extremely good, especially Ronnie Cox. He plays the moral bedrock of the group. What's Deliverance really famous for?
Squealing like a pig.
Yeah, you sure got a pretty mouth, boy.
Whenever you think of Southern horror, that is immediately what comes to mind. There's some hillbilly, inbred cannibal, whatever, and he is going to rape you and make you squeal like a pig.
Even though it's been parodied and referenced over and over again over the years, it has lost none of its shock value.
I know, which is kind of amazing, because usually when things get into lexicon like that, they completely lose any edge that they might have had, but rewatching this, that is forever going to be a horrific scene.
It's a viscerally dirty moment. Ned Beatty, they pull down his tidy whities and he's rolling around in the mud. Uncomfortable sequence in every way.
It is, and honestly, he acts kind of like a pig in the scene. Like, I wonder what came first. They asked him to squeal like a pig, or they asked him to squeal like a pig because he was being a pig. I don't know.
What I love about it is how the film switches tone so quickly. Before that, nice hangout movie. These guys are...
It's like a bro movie.
Yeah, and then suddenly it just takes this horrifying turn. I guess the audience is feeling the same way the characters do. A very pleasant trip has suddenly just become horrifying.
The way it concludes, them just like, okay, so we're never going to speak of this again. But they're all going to be haunted by it. Crazy way to end it as well, because usually you figure it ends with the good guys die or the bad guys die, or they all die. No, no, you see the aftermath a little bit. Oh no, these guys will be fucking haunted forever by this.
There's that long last act. They survive this ordeal and they get back to the town. The local sheriff suspects something has happened, but nobody knows anything.
Can't prove it. At the same time, they maybe survive, but there's also no justice for their friend that they lost.
And that's another thing. There's some ambiguity about what happens to Ronnie Cox's character. It seems to be that he's shot by an attacker. Both Foreman and Cox have said in interviews that it was a deliberately ambiguous moment. They wanted to make it look like the character possibly committed suicide or it was just an accident. We don't even know if the guy up on the cliffside is the one who shot him or not. Then you read that there were no stunt doubles in this movie. The actors did their own stunts. And you look at the scene of John Hoyt climbing up this mountaintop.
He was the Tom Cruise of the 70s.
Most movies, they show the guy going up the mountain, and that's a big, intense moment. Then usually they just cut to him back on the ground afterwards. This one shows the climb down, and it's just as intense him going up the mountain.
Yeah, it would feel like that would be a really slow moment that would drag, but it doesn't because of the intensity of it, just by how uncomfortable you are about what's going to happen next.
It's a very tense film, and debatable whether or not it belongs in the horror genre proper, but it has enough intense and upsetting moments to classify.
I think that's why it can be considered the main push of the film, the main action of the film depends on fear. This fear, again, of the other, of these backwoods people. You think you're a big city boy, but we'll show you what for. That is the fear that people have about the South. And I think this instilled a lot of that.
They sell fucking t-shirts that say, I hear banjos, paddle faster.
Yeah, exactly. And also dueling banjos, man, just the effect that that had on the culture as well. To this day, if you play dueling banjos, people think of this movie.
Exactly.
People, even if they've never seen it, they know what that refers to.
The use of music in this film is really interesting because there's actually very little music. It gives this very stark atmosphere.
Again, doing more naturalistic sounds and everything adds to the horror a bit because
it adds to the isolation.
Exactly. It's so quiet at times that it's scary.
If you were one of the millions of moviegoers who were electrified by the unbearable suspense and sheer terror of Jaws, get ready for Eaten Alive, created by Tobe Hooper, maker of the screen sensation The Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Into this house of terror comes a handful of unsuspecting innocents. What happens to these people in Eaten Alive will give you the most chilling, terrifying 90 minutes you ever spent in a theater. Get ready for Eaten Alive, a new horror classic.
1976's Eaten Alive. Now, have you seen this one?
Yes, this is one I have not seen, but I watched specifically for this. It's one that I've known about. I've seen you write about it before, when I guess you did your Tobe Hooper report card.
Yes.
It was a lot different than I expected, but not that different than I expected. I have such conflicting feelings on this movie because I did really enjoy it, but it's also one of the most annoying movies to watch.
It has an incredibly
sound design is
grating
horrible.
sound design. Yeah.
The couple is fighting in the room next door to him, and then you have the country music playing on top of that. I had to take a break for a hot second. It was getting into my brain.
It's such a strange movie. I feel like some ways Tobe Hooper was trying to out crazy the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Didn't quite work.
Because it's nowhere near as good as that movie.
No, but it is interesting and a bit weirder. It almost seems a bit more traditional than the Texas Chainsaw Massacre as far as the hillbilly redneck horror, and also tossing in the crocodile.
Chainsaw, this was loosely based off a real killer, a guy called Joe Ball, who owned a hotel in South Texas and fed his victims to his pet alligator.
Oh, well, that's interesting. It's weird because it's only maybe 30% an Crocodile Alligator Eats People movie, and it's mostly like a straight-up slasher.
It does have strong slasher elements. I even have that scene where the killer is chasing the girl through the woods.
Exactly. I'm very glad I watched this one because I hadn't seen it yet. I don't want to bring up Texas Chainsaw too much, but something I've noticed after watching this as well, and why I think Tobe Hooper might be one of the best directors of the Southern horror genre that we're talking about, there's something about his movies that you can just practically smell them. They're so dank and grimy and sweaty and hot.
Especially in Chainsaw and a little bit in this one too. I want to talk about a director who's had a wildly divergent career. Hooper has made some of the greatest movies ever made and some of the worst movies ever made.
He's definitely done a bit of both. Done Poltergeist, but he's done Eaten Alive. He's done Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but he's done Life Force.
Crocodile and the Mangler, those are probably his worst movies. Yeah. A problem with Eaten Alive is there's really no proper protagonist.
Honestly, when it starts out, it reminded me a little bit of Psycho.
Well, yeah, I think that was a deliberate thing because you have this girl going to this weird hotel.
You feel like maybe she's going to be your protagonist, but no, dies pretty quickly. There's no real main character. They're just all fodder for the bad guy and the crocodile.
In Psycho, you can see how Marion Crane could have a conversation with Norman Bates. He's a little weird. He seems like a mostly normal person. The guy in this movie, Neville Brand's Judd, does not hide his lunacy at all.
No, not at all. You basically have the check-in scene from Psycho where he makes her sign the book, and then within 2 minutes, he's like, oh, you're a whore. I'm going to slap you around and kill you.
Neville Neville Brand plays a part like somebody who has paranoid schizophrenia and is not sociable in the least, to the point where you wonder how this character could ever run a business at all.
And it does seem weird. It seems like everyone else in the town knows about it, because even at the whorehouse, they're like, yeah, he used to come around here. We had to tell him to stop, and he scared the girls.
Yeah, and this is an incredibly sleazy movie. The movie starts with Robert Englund attempting to sodomize a hooker. That's the first scene.
Of course, Robert Englund shows back up in this, and he is great in this, question mark.
Yeah, he plays the sleaziest motherfucker to ever grace cinema, I think.
He is so great at being sleazy. He does that so well. Still just,
Infamously, Quentin Tarantino would purloin that line about, my name's Buck and I'm here to fuck. From this
which again, I never knew. Because when I saw that, I was like, okay, Tarantino, I got you.
And even those two aren't the only crazy characters in this movie, because you also have William Finley playing this character who acts like he's on LSD or something.
Oh, the father? When they pull up to the motel, they're having an argument. Marilyn Burns is his wife. First thing you hear them say is, if I want a divorce, we're gonna get a divorce. Their marriage is falling apart and they have a small child with them. But when it cuts to them in the hotel room, I wasn't sure if he was drunk or just having a mental breakdown because his marriage is falling apart. A lot of the characters that aren't the serial killer in this are more disturbing than the serial killer.
William Finley gives a very strange performance. It's a very mean-spirited movie. There's a scene early on where they feed a cute puppy dog to the alligator or crocodile or whatever it is.
I hated that more than any of the people that died. I didn't care that the alligator might eat the little child. I really cared about that dog. Can we talk a little bit about the crocodile effects in this movie? Because
sure. They're somewhat crude.
Terrible, kind of endearing. On Celluloid, we just did Alligator recently, and those actually have some pretty great alligator effects, even though they are kind of cheesy. But this is a puppet with a hand in its mouth.
Yeah, and the whole movie has this intentional artificial element. Texas Chainsaw, of course, infamously shot in real locations. This whole movie was shot on sound stages.
Oh, was it?
Hotel, the Starlight Hotel is its name, doesn't look like a real place.
Not quite. With it being the backwoods country, then like you could see something that just doesn't look quite right.
Eaten Alive, it doesn't entirely work as a film. I don't really like it, but it has some interesting things in it, but it's very uneven.
Yeah, it was interesting to watch. I don't think I'd ever revisit it.
You may never again spend a night away from home after you spend a night with Ida and Vincent. Your most terrifying nightmare could never prepare you for what happens to the guests. One after another they come. One after another they check in and pray for the day they can check out. You'll never forget Ida, and you'll never forget Vincent. And hard as you try, you'll never forget their secret garden, Motel Hell. No one will be admitted after the guests check in.
We are moving into the 1980s, the golden age for the American slasher movie, many of which would partake in the Savage South setting. Though 1980s Motel Hell is not a traditional horror film by any means.
That is actually one I did not catch, but I'm going to watch it after this.
Yeah, you gotta see it. It's a great one. It's a horror comedy. It's completely ridiculous in many ways, but it has this good-natured goofiness to it, but it also has a lot of really explicit gore, and the two balance out in a weird way.
So it is more on the camp side, but is it actually scary at all?
The gore is played pretty straight. There's an image, if you've seen the poster, you've probably seen it, where the main villain wears a pig head and wields a chainsaw, and that moment as a kid kind of freaked me out.
Oh, I could see that. I think Shout Factory, or Scream Factory rather, did a Blu-ray release of it, that is the main image on it.
Yeah.
Gorgeous looking cover.
This is one I saw on Joe Bob Briggs' Monster Vision back in the day.
That was a kid's best friend back in the day.
This would be a great movie to stumble on cable in the middle of the night. Very good natured. Rory Calhoun plays the main villain, and this is a riff on Texas Chainsaw Massacre because they're killing people and eating them and selling the barbecue to people.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thing you see in horror fiction over and over again, where human flesh is apparently delicious.
Don't knock it till you try to, dude. We don't know.
Motel Hell, definitely recommend it. It's a really funny movie. There's a lot of really cool stuff in it. It's very campy.
That's actually something that I rented in preparation for this, but I have not watched it yet.
The bayous of Louisiana, the home of a little understood group of Americans. They're a peaceful people as long as they're left alone. The National Guard on weekend maneuvers. In 48 hours, they'll be home with their families. There's only one problem. They've crossed a boundary into a territory where they don't belong. They've violated laws they never knew existed. And the farther they go, the closer they get to nowhere. Southern Comfort. It's the land of hospitality, unless you don't belong there.
I have to thank you tremendously for inviting me to do this podcast because I fucking loved Southern Comfort.
This is a great 80s dudes on a mission movie.
Not only that, but it's Walter Hill directing, and this is at the height of what Walter Hill was doing, but it also has maybe one of the best ensemble casts I've seen in a long time.
An insanely great cast. Powers Booth, who is fucking amazing in this movie.
Him and Keith Carradine and Fred Ward. You get to see Powers Booth and Fred Ward knife fight each other.
Yes!
That is amazing.
In addition to that, you've got Peter Coyote and Brian James and Sandy Lundum in small parts.
Brian James is so good as the trapper in this. You even have T.K. Carter as Cribbs. He was Knowles in The Thing.
Oh, okay.
Lewis Smith, who plays Stucky in this. He's been in a number of things in this movie from the 80s that I really liked as a kid called The Heavenly Kid. Well, but
sounds like Heaven Can Wait for kids.
Yes, that's what it was. It was a remake of Heaven Can Wait called The Heavenly Kid.
Southern Comfort is another one that is borderline horror. If you ever listen to the Bangers and Mash, JD and I spend most of our time arguing about which movies are and aren't considered horror.
It's a fine line. To a certain extent, there is the horror genre. At a certain point, it becomes subjective. It's what scares you. Does this film scare you? Then that is a horror film.
Yeah, and there's this really thin line between what's a thriller and what's horror, to the point where those genres are almost indistinguishable.
Oh, sorry, I have to call out one more person in Southern Comfort. Alan Autry plays Bowden in this film, but he's Bubba from In the Heat of the Night, which I watched the fuck out of as a kid.
Walter Hill had done The Warriors before this, and apparently this was inspired by the same story of these soldiers marching through enemy territory.
It is very similar, the style of it. The Warriors being so New York, so 70s and gang-related compared to 1980s South Louisiana backwoods army thing. Even though they're kind of the same story, they feel completely different.
The Warriors is a campy comic book movie, and this is much more grounded.
Definitely. That's why I think it fits into the horror genre, because there are horrifying moments of it. It is more tense, it is more of a thriller, definitely, and a more action movie, but also there's horror in seeing these men break down, because none of them are prepared for any actual kind of war, especially war with these random couple of Cajun people that they run into. They all break down in their own little ways so quickly that it's terrifying.
And the film has this very foreboding atmosphere. Again, lots of fog, and there's a sense of dread, even from the first scene, that something bad is going to happen.
Something I love about it, and something that is always present in a lot of these films when it comes to these rednecks or these Cajun people taking revenge on a group of city boys or anything like that, is that it's always over something stupid, always over one little mistake that they make.
In this movie, they use one of the Cajuns' boats that was sitting out.
One of the guys embarrassed them. Yeah, they took their canoes, probably wouldn't have been a big deal, but then he shot his machine gun full of blanks at them as a joke. And then they're like, no, you don't fuck with. Because even Brian James, that's one of his last lines of the movie. No, I don't want to kill you. We just want you to know this is our home and you don't fuck with us.
And that's something that's in a lot of these Southern horror films, where an outsider comes into a community where they do not belong. The natives are hostile based on the fact that they're different.
But usually it stems from outsiders coming in and immediately judging these people. And
well, yeah, that's part of it too. Awesome cast in this, really well-paced movie. Keeps ratcheting up tension until you get to that incredible final act in the Cajun village.
Oh, God. And that is, again, why this is kind of a horror film. Because even the intercutting of them trying to get away with them playing the Cajun music, that is upsetting.
They're cutting the footage of the people dancing with footage of a pig being slaughtered.
Yeah.
I first saw this movie very young, and then I just revisited it last month. That was an image I still remember, the scene where they disembowel the pig.
The poster, it says, not since Deliverance. I guess it shares some kind of bonds with Deliverance, but much differently. It's much more First Blood than it is Deliverance.
That's a good comparison.
First Blood, but with a group of people. It has the group element of Deliverance, but the survivalist in the woods setting traps of First Blood.
It ends very suddenly, so there's really no catharsis for the audience at all. Like, the two characters get away, but you have the sense that...
But they're so broken.
Yeah, they're not going to be better.
Yeah, definitely not.
These Cajun trappers, the villains of the movie, they're mostly off screen. They're like this malevolent presence.
There are almost a floating shape in the background that you only catch little glimpses of, and they almost seem supernatural in a way of how they get around and set all these traps without being noticed.
It's a bit of a hidden gem because it's not a movie you hear talked about too much, but it's a very good one.
As a Walter Hill fan, I had maybe heard of this in passing, but I had no idea what it was, but I am so happy that I did this because I really love this movie.
Get ready for the killing season in Hunter's Blood. Only this season, the hunters will become the hunted, where the law of the land is do unto others before they do unto you. Starring Samuel Bottoms, Clu Gallagher, and Kim Delaney. Hunter's Blood.
So did you get to see Hunter's Blood?
No, I did not.
All right, well, I'll just
get it. We're kind of towards the end of what I actually did catch, and I didn't watch Jughead either.
I wish you had seen. That's a really interesting movie, Jug Face. Yeah, we'll just move on from Hunter's Blood. Most interesting about that movie is it's got Billy Drago and Bruce Glover in it.
Oh, well, that is interesting.
Yeah, Bruce Glover actually plays the main villain. He's a character that has a cataract over his eye, and he's completely deranged, and just proves that his son gets his ability to play crazy well from his dad. It's a straight-up ripoff of Deliverance.
Lou Gulager is in this? Come on, guys.
Billy Bob Thornton has a blink and miss it part. I think it was actually his first movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
So
and Joey Travolta is in it.
Oh, yeah. I'd forgotten about him. Yeah.
Oh, I'm going to have to look that one up afterwards. That actually seems kind of interesting.
In the heartland of America live a very special kind of people. But what happens when these simple, down-to-earth folk accidentally drink a barrel of nuclear waste? They become flesh-eating, bloodthirsty kinfolk from hell. They become Redneck Zombies, tobacco-chewing, gut-chomping creatures of the night. 7 city slickers will encounter a nightmare world of the hillbilly undead. Redneck Zombies is another provocative, anti-nuclear parable from the trauma team.
Moving on to 1989's Redneck Zombies. Now, with a title like that, you should know what you're getting into.
Yeah, and especially with that Troma label on it. Of course, they didn't make it, but they did release it, so it's in their wheelhouse.
I am sometimes a fan of Troma, but usually if it's a movie they didn't make and they're just distributing it, it's terrible.
Usually, again, that's still kind of hit or miss, but I'm much more on board for the movies that they make, mostly that Lloyd Kaufman directs. But there are some gems that they do release. They're few and far between. This is one that's alright. I actually wasn't a huge fan of this.
Didn't care for this movie at all. I find it to be obnoxious.
There is a little bit of charm for the shot-on-video style of it, which I am just a fan of that aesthetic, but that only goes so far. And the humor is dumb and juvenile, to a point where it's not even funny to where it tricks me into laughing. It's just annoying.
There are some funny moments in this movie. There's a scene that parodies Texas Chainsaw Massacre where a guy picks up a hitchhiker, but instead of going on about edgies, the hitchhiker is obsessed with shaving people.
Yeah, this all stems from drinking tainted liquor.
Radioactive moonshine.
I'd much rather watch Street Trash if I'm gonna watch something like that.
I've never seen Street Trash. That's something I've been meaning to get to for decades.
It's kind of great. It has some great people melting effects, which is kind of all you can ask. This is one of the Troma ones that is more well-known and more popular, but doesn't really live up to anything.
It has that great title on that awesome DVD art/poster.
That's the thing. Troma's great at making posters for shitty movies.
Yeah, it's that classic B-movie distribution style. It doesn't matter how crappy the movie is. If you get an awesome poster and a good title, people will go see it.
You just need a box art that'll catch people's eye and make them rent that from the video store.
Just to close up Redneck Zombies, would recommend seeing it for one scene. There's a character called the Tobacco Man, which is one of the strangest characters I've ever seen in any movie. A guy with a hood on his head. The rednecks run to him like he's the ice cream man, but he sells tobacco. But he talks in this reverberated voice and offers Luciferian bargains and monologues about evil.
Where the fuck does that come from?
Yeah, no, it's completely random.
I don't feel like they had that idea and based everything off of that. That was an idea that came in the last minute, and they're like, hey, this would maybe be cool.
The whole movie's kind of like that.
The performance, yeah, it's such a mishmash of stuff, and none of it really works that well. I can't even say it wasn't a chore to get through. It's short, but it's still a chore to get through.
It feels way longer than it is, because it is one of those movies where I think they did just make up a bunch of random bullshit, decide to film it, and it's occasionally amusing, but mostly it's just annoying.
The most stereotypical you could get with the redneck horror genre. There's not even anything in the way of characters. It really is just all stereotypes in the worst of ways.
One thing about this movie, I'm going to read some of the names of some of the people who worked on it. Heracles Lewins, Zoofoot, Boo Teasdale, P. Floyd Piranha. Now, there's no way these are real names, right?
If you're working on this film, you probably gave him a fake name.
Yeah, that's what I suspect. I just can't imagine there's a real person floating around the world named P. Floyd Piranha.
They uncovered a legend.
Hey, is anyone up there?
A secret hidden deep in the woods.
You can't just go barging into someone's house like that.
Hello?
This summer,
Guys, check this out. Oh, God.
We gotta get out of here.
cancel the camping trip. Wrong Turn. Rated R.
Jumping ahead to 2003's Wrong Turn, the movie that I have a sentimental connection with because it is the first movie I ever saw on a date with a girl.
Oh, really? Hey, it's okay. I got my first kiss while watching Bring It On.
There was no heavy petting while watching this.
These mountain men, how could you not be turned on by these guys?
My thought process was the classic, you take the girl to the scary movie and she jumps in your lap. But the problem was she was also a huge horror fan.
So neither of you are scared. You're both just kind of like, ooh. No.
The thing with Wrong Turn is it is really a throwback to 80s slashers, strictly formula.
I think I've seen this twice. I think I saw it once in theaters and then I saw it once on home video, and I haven't revisited it, but I remember really liking it.
It's fun. It starts with unimportant characters getting killed. There's a creepy gas station attendant.
I also remember it having a pretty decent cast. Liza Dushku is in it. Jeremy Sisto, who I really love, is in this. Kevin Zegers. There is a decent cast in this.
Yeah, Lindy Booth.
Oh, yeah.
Jeremy Sisto, he's doing a Jeff Goldblum impersonation in this.
Most of his career, he's kind of like the young Jeff Goldblum, what he did in a lot of things.
What's he up to these days? I haven't seen Jeremy Sisto in anything in years.
I think he was on one of those Law and Order shows for a while.
Well, this was a vehicle for Elijah Dushku, who was coming off of Buffy. Dushku is one of those actresses, when she's jumping through windows and beating people up, she does fine, but when she has to emote, I can see the seams a little bit.
I don't ever really see her emote that much. Maybe she just doesn't ever get that meaty of a role. She's usually fine and serviceable and even likable in most things I've seen her in.
This is such a straight-up slasher movie that a pair of teenagers have sex, they're immediately killed afterwards.
Well, I mean, because that's wrong and it's a sin and you go to hell, and so you get killed by a murderer.
Like,
checks out.
They run into the police officer who immediately gets killed. Cops in slasher films are always completely useless.
Or they show up at the last minute after everything's already happened. But again, when you have backwoods, you small town people, they're not prepared for it. They're one guy.
Another reason to like Wrong Turn is it's both a slasher film, but it's also a monster movie. Stan Winston did the creature effects for this.
They're really good.
They all have names like One Tooth and Two Fingers.
This achieved something. In the early 2000s, by that time, especially with Scream coming out and things getting meta, we were aware of horror movies, aware of the tropes, and it was all laughable and cheesy at that point. This is very laughable and cheesy in a lot of ways, especially those effects attribute it to actually being kind of scary at times, actually being a little bit freaky.
This is very much a traditional slasher film, but it's not self-aware the way Scream is. There's no joking around about the rules or anything.
There's the awkward humor that there usually is in these types of films, but yeah, it's not self-referential humor.
There are some pretty cool gore gags in this, people getting shot through the chest with arrows, garroted with barbed wire.
I'm always a fan of a good arrow death, and arrow deaths are prominent in Southern horror movies.
Weird, yeah, you're right. The backwoods psychos have crossbows or bows and arrows, but they don't have guns, which is the inverse of reality.
Yeah, because usually they're out hunting with guns, but you figure sometimes they might hunt with bows and arrows, but they're not that behind the times. They have rifles and stuff like that. That's what those people hunt with.
Yeah, but
that's why they're afraid of you taking away their guns. They're not afraid of you taking away their bows and arrows.
In these Southern horror films, the people from the city come to the South. They give them bows and arrows to make them seem more primitive.
And that also seems more intimidating. Guy with a gun. I've seen that before. I recognize that. I know that. A guy with a bow and arrow. Fuck, he's on some shit.
Because it's a slasher movie, you want the cool gore, and you can get that more easily with an arrow through the neck than you can with somebody who's get shot in the head.
Gun deaths get repetitive and boring after a while, but yeah, anything that can cut the flesh and add some gore, that's what you want.
One problem I do have with Wrong Turn, which is a movie I do enjoy, is the lead actor, Desmond Harrington. He's just omnibulous. He's completely flat. One of the most uncharismatic performances.
His name is way more interesting than he is.
Another thing with Wrong Turn is it spawned 5 sequels. Did you know this?
I didn't know it was that many. I knew of at least 3 sequels.
There are 6 movies in total, and all the sequels went direct to video.
6? No, I never saw any of the sequels.
And the 6th one just came out last year, I think.
Ugh. Yeah, I'm seeing Wrong Turn 5 was as early as 2012, so yeah, I could see another one being after that.
I did see the first sequel, and it was actually pretty entertaining. It had Henry Rollins in it as like badass drill sergeant.
Oh, well, that's good. He's always nice when he turns up places.
It was more of a comedy. There was more gore. I remember enjoying it quite a bit. It was directed by Joe Lynch, who has gone into some interesting stuff.
Oh, okay.
But I haven't seen any of the further sequels, and from what I've read, they vary wildly in quality. But the first one, it's fun. It's pretty disposable, but it's a good time.
Howdy, folks. You like blood, violence?
On a stormy Halloween night, 4 young people set out across the back roads of America in search of a mysterious figure known only as
Dr. Satan.
What they uncovered is the most horrifying and shocking tale of carnage ever seen. From director Rob Zombie comes a journey into hell, House of a Thousand Corpses.
For the next 2 titles on the list here, I've got to ask you a question. Are you a fan of Rob Zombie, director?
That's a complicated question. I want to say, yeah, I like Rob Zombie. I do. When I was a teenager and I was into fucking nu metal and everything, yeah, I like Rob Zombie. I appreciate him as a director. I get what he's trying to do. I like about half of what he does, maybe. And usually that's not even his complete output. That's film to film. I like about half of what he does in every film.
He is, I would say, without question, the most divisive name in the horror fandom these days.
He has great ideas. He has great execution and style and look, casting, the final execution, where it goes usually doesn't turn out well. His fucking weird editing tics that he has are just annoying, especially in House of Thousand Corpses. He just seemed to be like, oh, I'm gonna throw everything that I've seen in music videos and movies into this, and it's gonna annoy the piss out of you.
I describe it as like being inside the Dracula video for 88 minutes.
Yeah, except Chris Hardwick is there, and he's annoying as fuck.
Chris Hardwick is in this, isn't he? Oh no.
I didn't realize, because I saw this, again, in theaters when it came out. I owned this briefly. This is before I knew Chris Hardwick outside of Singled Out. I forgot that he was one of the main 4 kids in this.
Yeah, this was before Chris Hardwick had reinvented himself as this multimedia internet mogul.
He's done well for himself. This is in his weird, I drink a lot and I'm really puffy face. That wig on him is terrible. He's not very good. It doesn't suit the time period. He's acting like 2003 when it's supposed to be 1978.
And that's a problem Zombie has sometimes. I don't know if you've seen his most recent film, 31, but it's set in the 70s, but in no way feels like the 70s.
No, I've heard that is garbage, though.
I didn't like it.
But I have heard really good things about the Witches of Salem.
Lord Salem was interesting.
Lords of Salem.
The thing with Zombie is he has this obsession with a white trash aesthetic.
We kind of need. What are we going to talk about for the rest of this episode other than Rob Zombie movies? He's the only one still doing this in a big way.
Interesting, but sometimes it can be incredibly abrasive, and it just depends on how he balances it out.
If you look at House of a Thousand Corpses versus The Devil's Rejects, it's like night and day. Rewatching House of a Thousand Corpses, I liked it a lot more. All of the characters are terrible, and I hated them. And all of his little editing things where he made it music videos are really annoying, but I like the base idea of it and the aesthetic of it.
Yeah, you mentioned this way he cuts around, and he'll sometimes cut to completely isolated things that have nothing to do with the rest of the film.
It's a little bit more interesting in House of a Thousand Corpses because he seems to insert these shots we never have any context for. The family filming themselves, like saying their philosophy and are doing weird fucked up things that we don't actually see on film, but it's these quick snippets of how deranged they are.
There are 2 in House of a Thousand Corpses that I really remember. One is this black preacher with a shotgun who's ranting and rambling, and then there's a scene where a redneck is talking about how his wife was raped by the skunk ape.
Yeah.
What the fuck is this? What does this have to do with the rest of the movie?
There's a lot of really unnecessary stuff that he just tosses in. The cheap TV horror movie host that they keep cutting to every once in a while that's playing on the TV. Like, there's no reason for that to be there, but it's a kind of nice little touch.
It's like the I'm Your Boogeyman music video. He did the same thing. Dr. Wolfenstein or something, I think was the name of that character.
Yeah, Dr. Wolfenstein. This is his first movie. He's mostly been a musician, but he's really been into making his music videos. This just veers a bit too close to a music video and doesn't really work as a movie.
You mentioned his strength with casting, and he does get a lot of really interesting performers in his movie.
Just the bad guy.
You watch Zombie's career and you realize that he really is not interested in the traditional protagonist. When he remade Halloween, he made Michael Myers the main character.
Yeah.
This movie introduced Sid Haig to a whole new generation, and he's been a presence in the horror genre ever since this came out.
That's the thing that works so strongly for him, that he's such a fan of 60s through 80s horror films and exploitation films. Every single person that I loved growing up is going to be in my movie, and I'm going to give them a second chance.
Yeah, because I think Sid Haig had actually retired. He came out of retirement for this movie, and he's been as busy as ever since then.
Yeah, this got them working again. Karen Black as well as Mother Firefly. Who had seen Karen Black in a movie before 2003 that wasn't a decade or more old? There's a couple of earlier people. There's Chris Hardwick in here who was kind of terrible, but he's going to go on to great things. Walton Goggins is in this as well.
Who has now become, well, not quite a big name, but a face people know.
He's a go-to guy now.
Rainn Wilson, this was an early movie for him.
I don't know why, but that didn't even cross my mind. But yes, Rainn Wilson is also in this.
Yeah, he gets turned into Fish Boy.
Not bad. Yeah, Fish Boy is the most memorable thing he does in this.
Yeah, and that's a problem with this movie that he would correct with Devil's Rejects, which is about the Firefly clan. And this one, he introduces these teen college-age characters, and you don't care about them. They're fodder.
He realized pretty quickly that the Firefly clan is what the movie is. That's what's interesting. You only get hints of them in here. How do you feel about him casting his wife in all of his movies?
Oh, Sherry Moon. She has some talent.
She's actually really good in The Devil's Rejects, but she got on my nerves so much in this movie.
Oh, yeah, she's incredibly abrasive.
What's this thing about showing off his wife's butt? Man, she has the best butt. You need to see this.
There's a scene where she's dressed in girly pajamas and she bends over and her ass falls out. The camera lingers on it.
For no reason. And then there's a scene later where she's just wearing assless chaps. For no reason.
He has a fixation on his wife's butt. And it's a nice butt, so I guess it's fine.
I understand. To enjoy that, man. You don't have to rub it in my face, rub that butt in my face, because I don't have that.
Bill Moseley, a name that's come up already on the show, he is pretty interesting in this as Otis. hilarious.
He is. He's from Texas Chainsaw 2. Possibly one of his best and creepiest roles is Chop Top. Do you notice the look of him between this and Devil's Rejects and how much of a change that is? His hair is, maybe there's not a lot there, and he looks sickly. Then the next one, he's fucking bearded, ripped mountain man.
Zombie originally intended the character of Otis to be an albino, but for the sequel, they dropped that because the sequel was more grounded.
Maybe in Devil's Rejects, he's just more covered in dirt, so maybe he just looks a little darker.
House of Thousand Corpses sat on the shelf for about 3 years, and if this had come out in 2000, I think it would have been received very differently. In 2000, the horror genre was in a lull, and there wasn't a lot of really explicit gore in films, and people would have been like, oh my god, what is this?
So you think it would have been more successful or less successful?
Better received.
From what I'm seeing on IMDb, it had a budget of $7 million and made about 12.5.
What do you think of that last act where Dr. Satan shows up?
I love the concept of Dr. Satan. I love the look of him when he's actually operating, and I like the weird funhouse maze thing, but none of it makes a lick of fucking sense. Like, any of the characters, what's happening, why anything's allowed to happen.
Because there is that weird buildup where they put the characters in bunny suits and they lower them down into this underground tunnel, backwards music playing. The whole movie's kind of like that. It's just weird things happening that are sort of interesting, but they're not very coherent.
They're doing some kind of a ritual where they're lighting a fire, and Bill Moseley has his white makeup on and stuff, but it doesn't seem to be connected. Weird for weird's sake.
And I think that's a good way to describe the movie, weird for weird's sake. Love Sid Haig as Captain Spaulding. He gives a hilarious performance.
Oh, he is great, and he deserves every bit of fame that he received. I think that's why there's so much more of him in The Devil's Rejects. He's like, okay, this is what worked in that movie, so I'm going to make a movie centered around these people.
Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas, everyone! It's that time of year again when you, my friends, get to shell out all your hard-earned cash buying presents for people you don't even like. Why not buy them Murder Rag gift certificates? They last all year long. By the way, when you're down there, make sure that you pick up your Captain Spaulding for President t-shirts. Merry Christmas, ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas, ha, ha, ha. Merry Christmas, spend more money. Merry Christmas, right this way, ha, ha.
The Devil's Rejects from 2005, I still really like this movie a lot.
It had such an effect on me when I first saw it, especially that ending scene of the shootout to Freebird. That was almost cathartic. That had such an effect on me when I saw it in the theater. It could never really match that again rewatching it. I still liked it, but I guess I've kind of become a bit numb to it. I'm just getting old. Some of it seems a little mean and unnecessary at times.
That ending, it should be completely ridiculous. You have these characters who are these brutal, vicious serial killers. They're doing a suicide stand. They're running into the cop.
Guns blazing.
I think this is the only movie where Freebird plays in its entirety.
It does, because that's how long the sequence is, but it's also one of the only movies where Freebird plays and it fucking works.
Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't work, but somehow it does. They're flashing back to them frolicking in a field together. You've just watched 90 minutes of these characters torturing people, but you still feel bad for them.
Because they get the hero shot. That is the Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid going out in the blaze of glory thing. They are going out heroically to the song, but they're the bad guys of this movie. Rob Zombie realized these were the things that worked in the last movie. These are the characters people like. I'm going to make a movie about them, and they're going to be the heroes.
I'm going to use the word monster to refer to characters like Michael Myers and the Fireflies. Most horror films try to give you a final girl or some sort of heroine, normal people being terrorized, and he just says, you know, I'm just going to make it about the monsters because they're the most interesting thing to me. The Fireflies go on the road, and the first thing they do is they torture this family in this hotel room, and it's an extended sequence. People are getting their face cut off. Oh, Bill Moseley shoves a gun into a woman's panties.
Disgusting. And also, doesn't that end with the maid running out of the hotel room with the face mask on and getting hit by the truck? Disturbing stuff. And I guess maybe I just lost my taste for that as I've gotten older. I still think it is a good movie. The cast is great.
The movie establishes that these are bad people. They're sadistic, torturers, serial rapists, horrible monsters. The last act, they're kidnapped by the Sheriff Wydell character, and he is doing things to them that are just as bad. I think Zombie is trying to flip the audience's sympathies a bit. He's playing with how... It has that scene where Wydell has the axe and he's chasing Baby through a maze, and it's like a slasher movie moment where the final girl's being chased by the killer.
She is the killer. And
Yeah.
she's the one being chased. Yeah, so I see what he was doing with that, and that is interesting. But then at the end of the day, there's just no one to root for because they're all terrible.
You do sort of root for the Fireflies because the characters love each other, and they have that bond that makes them, if not relatable, at least more human.
They have the bond over madness.
The scene I always think of is when they're getting tortured, the sheriff is using a staple gun on them, and he's going to torture Sherry Moon's character, and then Zig Haig, who is her father, father says, no, torture me instead, which is in a weird way kind of touching.
I know, but it shouldn't be. The more I compare House of a Thousand Corpses and The Devil Rejects to everything else we've talked about, if Zombie reined it in a bit, or at least got a solid idea down, he could be today's Tobe Hooper. He does very much have that dirty, grimy, sweaty aesthetic of the Texas Chainsaw movies. He gets that. If he could just reach the Devil's Rejects level again, or really fully execute an idea, he could have that kind of career. But I guess he's been more like the real Tobe Hooper.
I agree with you that if he reeled it in frequently, his movies would be a lot better. I would love to see him direct a script he didn't write, because I think that's where a lot of the problems are. There are a lot of funny, memorable moments in The Devil's Rejects. There's that great sequence where they bring in the film critic to lecture them about Groucho Marx, and he ends up getting into an argument about Elvis. JD and I constantly quote the line about, there's no fucking ice cream in your fucking future.
Oh, that is a good one.
You mentioned it has a great cast. Bill Moseley, Sid Haig, Sherry Moon are all back. In addition to that, you've got Ken Foray, Michael Berryman, Danny Trejo.
Danny Trejo, I forgot he was in that.
Yeah.
Jeffrey Lewis is in this as well.
And then fucking Diamond Dallas Page shows up.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Karen Black gets a lot more to do in this movie.
It's not Karen Black in this one.
Is it not?
Yeah, it's Leslie Easterbrook from the Police Academy movies.
Are you kidding me?
It's a different actress.
Did Karen Black die before this happened?
No, she just didn't come back. I think there was a pay dispute.
Oh my god, she looks so much like Karen Black. Even looking at her IMDb picture, she looks like Karen Black. I had no idea that wasn't her that came back.
When I told JD that it was a different actress, he had the same reaction, so I guess they did a good job of making them look similar.
Maybe the lady from the Police Academy movies is a better actress than Karen Black. Owns that role in this movie.
I like Karen Black a little better.
I do like what Karen Black did in that, and I guess she was a bit more reserved in her sexuality and stuff, but I like how dirty sexual that she is when she's dealing with William Forsythe. I really like that. Like,
yeah, she makes this very crude attempt to seduce him.
It carries on exactly the same character that was in House of a Thousand Corpses, what Karen Black did. It made it a bit sleazier, and I liked that.
Obviously, it's supposed to have this sleazy atmosphere. Like, you should watch it, and you should want to take a shower afterwards, but I just enjoy these characters so much.
Of course, the ending is great to watch, but everything getting up to that and a lot of the torture, it isn't so much a hangout movie for me. Those are good characters, and I think that's been Rob Zombie's problem, is that he hasn't been able to create characters that good since.
Did you see the way those guys looked at us?
Who wants to go skinny dipping?
No.
We got your friend!
Hillbillies.
They captured Allison!
Oh, it's the pancakes. You hate pancakes. I'm gonna make you something else.
What am I doing here?
You fell into the water. I dove in and rescued you. We'll go find your friends. You should relax. Tucker and Dale are on the case.
Dale, what are you doing?
Digging a shitter hole.
You mind if I help?
He's making her dig her own grave.
There's no rules out here. It's us against them.
The next one on the list here, Tucker and Dale versus Evil.
Which I love, and I've actually written a little bit about. It was either the first or the second year we were doing the site. Every year during Halloween, I try to do alternate horror movie recommendations. Evil in the Woods movie. Usually you'd watch Evil Dead 2. Try Tucker and Dale versus Evil instead. Hey, you want to watch a meta slasher movie? You'd usually watch Scream, right? Watch 1990s Popcorn instead.
Oh,
It's
I love
kind of
Popcorn.
yeah, exactly. Alternates to the ones you've watched a million times that everybody knows about. Definitely recommended this one because I fell in love with this movie when I saw it.
Tucker and Dale vs. Evil is a movie that non-horror fans love. I can't tell you how many times I've told somebody I like horror movies, and they said, oh, have you seen Tucker and Dale vs. Evil? People who have never seen any other horror movies in their life love this one.
I think it's because the cliches are so universal at this point. Even if you've never seen, like I said, if you've never seen Deliverance, you still know dueling banjos and squeal like a pig. You know the tropes.
The thing that I really like about this one is it flips the slasher movie formula on its head.
It's very subversive in that, and it does it in such a funny way. It plays all those cliches and tropes that you're used to, where the teenage kids are terrible and they're the people you hate. But something that really helps it in my eyes, one of the two leads is Tyler Labine, who I love and will watch in anything.
You know, I haven't seen him in that much other stuff, but he's definitely great in this.
I think he's a great actor and really funny, lovable, and he has a great sense of comedic timing and physical comedy. You have Alan Tudyk as well as Tucker. They're kind of the perfect duo.
Yeah, I think of this as almost the American response to Shaun of the Dead. Skinny guy, fat guy. I mean, I know that's a tradition that goes back hundreds of years. It has that similar relationship, a neat buddy movie that comments on horror.
I never even thought about that, but that's a really good comparison.
Obviously, the characters are different, but it has a similar arc of the more responsible one and then the fat guy who is a mess, but he's working on trying to get better.
That's a really good comparison.
The thing I really like about Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, it's almost as if the writers went down the list of the Southern horror stereotypes, the cliches, and then decided to subvert each one. Instead of the two main characters being deprived murderers, they're well-intentioned buffoons. And then I love what they do with the encounter at the creepy gas gas station. The creepy gas station guy, that is a hallmark of this genre.
It's usually the guy shouting doom. But what I love is that it actually takes a way more realistic approach to these southern people that you run into in horror movies. Yeah, they might have a bit of an accent. Yeah, they might be a bit more simplistic than you big city folk, but they're just two dudes hanging out.
What would usually be, the creepy gas attendant who is this foreshadowing about the bad things that are going to happen. In this, he's awkwardly attempting to hit on this girl, but he's so bad at it.
He's holding a scythe.
And all of the death that happens in this movie is completely by accident.
All the fault of the teenagers who believe these stereotypes about Southern people and thus run away and make stupid decisions thinking that these guys are trying to kill them when they're just trying to talk to them.
Another moment is when Tucker has a chainsaw out and he's being chased by bees, but the teen doesn't realize he's being chased by bees. So
he looks like Leatherface.
Guy coming at him with a chainsaw.
It's such a clever movie, and it's done so well, and it's also just really funny. It does kind of go off the rails a little bit towards the ending and the reveal of the actual bad guy.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of how the idea is that, the lead teen, he appears to be a normal guy, but truthfully, he's the one with this legacy of murdering.
But he's bigoted against rednecks.
It's a funny idea, but I agree that the movie ladles it on a little too.
It's not executed that well.
Yeah. Best scenes in this movie are just Tucker and Dale hanging out. And I love the way that Alan Tudyk, he suffers increasing levels of punishment throughout this film.
He does. Again, I guess that also plays into the whole, the bad guy is usually indestructible and usually can take any amount of damage and keep coming, but it's just this guy that doesn't want any of it, and he just keeps getting hurt and just wants to go home.
Even though it's a comedy, it still has some pretty crazy gore sequences in it. A guy leaps into a wood chipper.
Yes, that is such a good scene. It does have these random moments of extreme gore that remind you like, oh yeah, this is still kind of a horror movie.
Just a little over the top. It's not like Dead Alive. It's not so over the top it becomes ridiculous, but it's a little outside of reality that it doesn't leave a bad taste in your mouth.
The kind of thing where instead of just being ridiculous and laughable the whole time, one of those things that'll make you gasp and then laugh.
I like this one a lot. It is a really easygoing, entertaining film. I would be interested in a sequel. I could see Tucker and Dale having more adventures.
I could, and I could see it almost as like an Evil Dead 2 thing. Oh no, they have to return to the cabin in the woods for some reason or another. Go through the Cthulhu or something. Like, go through like an ancient evil.
I was thinking Alien, because you always hear about drunken rednecks getting abducted by aliens.
Ooh, that would be a good angle for a sequel. I really hope this happens. I would just really like to see those two guys together again in a movie. I thought they had great chemistry.
It has spoken. It is an honor to be chosen to be with it in this world. You know that. But without the blood, waters, pit would heal no one.
Has the pit ever taken a baby?
And you better blame it on somebody else. I don't care who.
We wait until the pit guides his hand to make another.
What did you do?
You think you can just turn your back on us?
Maurice!
It's all my fault.
The pit wants what it...
Now, you said you didn't get to see Jug Face.
No, I did not.
I would consider this a real hidden gem.
Is that more recent?
Yeah, this is from 2013. It stars Lauren Ashley Carter. Do you know her? Have you seen Darling?
I have seen Darling. Is she the lead in Darling?
Yes.
I quite enjoyed that. Sean Young, that's nice to see.
Yeah, Sean Young's in Jug Face as well. She plays Lauren Ashley Carter's mom.
Absolutely, we'll watch that.
Yeah, Sean Young and Larry Fessenden are her parents.
Okay.
It's about a backwoods community who, these hillbillies living out in the woods, and they worship this thing called the pit, which is a pit in the ground, and they sacrifice people to it, and it makes sure that their life is protected. They determine who is sacrificed. One of the people in the community gets a vision and then makes a jug that has a face on it, and the person whose face is on the jug is the next person to be sacrificed. And Lauren Ashley Carter's character is this teenage girl named Ada. Her face appears on the jug, and she flees the community, and then some bad things start to happen. The pit becomes angry.
Oh, so it actually is real.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting film. Lauren Ashley Carter has quickly become one of my favorite actresses. She's great in this, and I definitely recommend seeking out Jug Face. It's a real hidden gem. The director, Chad Krinkle, hasn't made another film since, but I hope he does something again at some point.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll definitely have to check that out.
Is there any Southern horror films we didn't talk about that you can think of?
Spit on Your Grave is definitely one that lends its hand to that and has a lot of those elements. Also, Vincent D'Onofrio directed a movie called Don't Go Into the Woods.
I've seen that, the musical.
I didn't see that. Oh, is it a musical?
Sort of a musical. A punk band goes into the woods and they sing throughout. I didn't really care for it, but it was an interesting idea.
I wanted to see it because he directed it, and I'm a huge fan of his. I didn't expect it to be great. I think this is a genre that it doesn't pop up a whole lot anymore. It isn't as prominent as it was in the 70s and 80s, especially with the current climate and the culture. It might be one that comes back a little bit. I will say I did write a horror parody trailer when I was a teenager. But I had an incident where I was out in the backwoods area past Mobile. I was riding around with some friends, maybe 16, 17 years old, and our car went through a puddle and got mud all over it. We stopped at a gas station in the middle of nowhere, tiny little gas station, and they had the thing to clean your windshields with. We didn't care. We were teenagers. We got out and started cleaning the whole car with it to get all the mud off. And around the back of this gas station comes this old man screaming at us while he's holding a leaf blower that's going full force. And I wrote a parody trailer called The Alabama Leaf Blower Incident. It was like a parody of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Quick cuts of like, oh, these kids are out in the middle of nowhere, and ooh, their car gets dirty. Guy comes out, and I just had this image in my head of this old man swinging around a leaf blower like a chainsaw.
I would watch that movie.
It played really well in my head. I might have to revisit that one day.
A movie I really wanted to see that I haven't seen yet is a documentary from the early 70s called The Hollow, and it's about a community of backwoods people living, I think this is actually in upstate New York, and they're all completely inbred.
That's interesting, because again, that's what people think about when they think of the South at all, even larger cities.
For the most part, it's all exaggerated, but that's just one example of sometimes things like this do actually happen.
That doesn't automatically mean that they're going to be cannibals and serial killers.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's going to be very simple people leading very simple lives.
Marcus, if you would, could you give the audience your websites and such?
Oh, yeah. My website is crushcelluloid.com. We talk about celluloid, and we fucking crush it. And, of course, you can find us on facebook.com/crushcelluloid. We're on Twitter, crushcelluloid, minus the E in crushed. I also have the Jean-Pod Van Damme, which is pod_Damme on Twitter. Just check out our stuff. We have a YouTube channel. You know, we do things. They're all right sometimes.
If anybody listening to this would like to get in contact with me or my usual co-host, you can find us on Facebook, www.facebook.com/The Bangers and Mash Show. We've recently crossed 100 episodes.
Oh, congratulations. We still haven't gotten there. We've been doing this for almost 3 years.
Do you have any final words you want to say, Marcus?
I don't know, man. Kind of glad I don't live in Alabama anymore.
Thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It was awesome to not have to host a show and just get to come on and talk.
My baby left me, and I'm so blue. My heart is aching, my brain is goo. I get drunk and wander from dawn till dawn. I am just a redneck zombie since you're gone. Well, I can't think and I can't feel, but I can drink and cuss and squeal. Oh, bitch, without you, my life's doo-doo. I'm a blue-dick redneck zombie without you. I groan and cry to the guys by the stair. Then I take me a bottle and a chug that swill. And my eyes glaze over, my heartache gets dull. That's when I fall, gasoline on the wall. My life is over, dying's beating like I stuck my head where there ain't no sun. I'm missing something, I hope you are too. I'm a lovesick redneck zombie, how about you?